Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of We'll See You in Hell, the podcast brought to you by the Fangoria Podcast Network. For more info about the network, including this program and other programs, how to follow our show and other shows, and finding episodes of every show. Not every show in history, but the ones on this network. Please visit Fangoria.com. And now, here we are. We'll see you in hell. My co-host, Pat Walsh.
Hello.
In full stereo, new format.
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't heard, you want to explain it to them?
Absolutely. Each week, we're no longer tied to a movie. We were finding that listening to ourselves talk for, in the case of The Shining, for example, 2.5 hours was pushing it. It was pushing even our interest in what we had to say. So we're switching it up. We're doing Sins, which allows us to keep the title We'll See You in Hell. And each week, the loose headline of the podcast is a different sin. We're going to do the 7 deadlies up first, then get to your more minor sins.
Yeah.
We've done, help me out, Joe. We did anger, rage.
We did wrath was the last episode, and before wrath was gluttony, and now this one today is lust.
Today, we're going to talk about lust.
Lust, when you want to get your fuck going.
The interesting thing about these deadly sins is that they are all things everyone does pretty much every day.
It is true, you know.
Like, how bad can they really be? Are we really putting murder up with fucking gluttony?
Well, that's not an everyday.
Yeah.
Murder is also not one of the deadlies.
Yeah,
wrath.
It's not one of the deadlies. I guess they're saying that these are the sins that lead you to...
I will say this. I'm not a religious man, but I will say the 7 deadlies are a pretty good code or idea of whether or not you're going to be leading a happy life.
Exactly. I grapple with these sins every day, and I lead a pretty profoundly unhappy life.
Yeah.
But I also feel generally okay. I'm not really depressed or miserable or anything else. I just always find myself, a little raw around the edges, and I think it keeps me alive, basically,
I feel as if I'm drifting into some sort of Hunter S. Thompson cavern dungeon at this point. I remember watching a documentary about him where they said he just kept doing more and more drugs to try to get to this magical place of creativity.
Sure.
And he never did. He was just so fucked up he couldn't write properly. And I feel like maybe that's sort of the road I'm headed on.
Okay.
Where eventually they're going to go, did you go to that show the other night, man? That guy, what is he doing, man? He's up there with a...
Well, the hope is that people will tell you when you hit that point, and then you do 50% as much.
And then you say, fuck you. I don't know. You're not my fucking mother.
That's more like what you would do.
Yeah, and then you keep going.
Yeah.
Lust is, for me... I think lately has been one of the more easily controllable sins because Prozac evened out my libido a bit.
Okay.
And it kind of made me have just a normal sex drive instead of like the sex drive of an addict where I'm jerking off twice a day and thinking about sex constantly.
Well, if that makes you an addict, then I guess, hello, my name is Patrick Walsh.
But I masturbate a few times a week. That's it.
Yeah. We're literally the cliche, like, what's a podcast? You talk about how many times you jerk off in a week? Yeah, actually it is.
I masturbate a few times a week. I'll tell you, I'm dating a girl. I can take it or leave it. We have some sex, fine. We don't. I don't care. Half the time I'm too tired from that hoagie I just ate.
Well, it's a healthier place to be. I think what they're saying with the deadly sins is you don't let it overtake your life. You don't let food, drug, sex, anger overtake your life. And these things are always in danger of overtaking my life, and I would imagine yours as well. But I'm always like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm glad that I was raised with some sort of moral code to rein me in. Now, sex, I'm in a relationship, and, I'm not going to get too deep into my relationship, but I'm in the kind of relationship where I can truly have sex whenever I want. I'm not in the everybody loves Raymond thing where... it's like, not tonight, honey. I can have sex whenever I want.
Is there anything sadder than on that show watching him, like, grovel for the sex? Well, it makes me really sad.
When you grow up watching only those shows, Married with Children and on, you think that's what it is. And maybe it is once you get married. I don't know. I guess in her case, she wanted to have sex and he didn't, which was the flip in Married with Children.
It is funny on Married with Children how disgusted by the idea he is.
and how hot she is,
yeah.
and how schlubby he is.
Yeah, she's 10
That was a
times
bad
more
example.
attractive than he is.
I picked
and,
maybe the worst example.
yeah, and he's just disgusted by it.
Yeah, it does make me laugh. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, where does lust fall? You said these sins threaten potentially taking over your life. Where does lust fall in the ranking? You got 7.
well,
Where's lust on the list?
it's a minor one for me, except, like where lust would threaten to overtake my life is if I was always out trying to cheat, which is not something I am doing.
Unless you're talking about your diet, am I right, Patty?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Folks.
These are the jokes. But where it has in the past, like let's look at a time when I'm single, because I feel like I have a extremely healthy, satisfying sex life with a person I love, who I've been with for a long time.
All right, we get it. She might listen to this.
She doesn't listen to it.
All right.
But
Sure.
like now she's out of town for a week. Where lust comes into play for me is I resort back to my single days where, Joe, I can lose an 8-hour day with the jerking off. Now, that's not something that flares up often, but I can get into this thing where it's like, let's look at this porn site. Now I'm deep in this. Then you click on one, and sometimes it doesn't take you to the video. It opens up another porn site. You're familiar with that.
Of course,
practice.
yeah.
Then you're like, oh, what? I've never seen these clips before.
They call it rubber banding.
Yeah. Then you're down
No,
that hole.
they
and
don't
it's
call
like,
it that. It
oh,
sounds
now
like
we're
they
over
should,
here.
though. Right?
Yeah, rubber banding, I would buy that.
All right.
And I can lose a whole day. And, maybe you pop off 8 times. Maybe you pop off once at the end of 8 hours. But at the end of the day, I look at myself like, holy Lord, what have I done? What have I become?
This beast
I try to avoid porn, but once you start, it's a slippery slope.
I remember Patrice O'Neill used to have a joke about like porn in cyberspace and saying like he like sub-clicked so many times that if he was in actual space he wouldn't know how to get back to his ship at that point. Like
yeah, exactly.
He had gone so far out into orbit, and it's like I've been there where you're like, oh god damn it, I wanted this to be a movie. Why is it another website? Well, this is interesting. Well, this site does offer some other things. I've had a point of contention with something that took place in the show Love.
Okay. I love Love.
I like
think
it
it's a
quite
kind
a
of
bit.
divisive show, but I really loved it.
I like it quite a bit. But there's that scene in the first episode where the 2 sisters try to have sex with him, and he's disgusted by it.
Yeah.
I was watching it with a friend of mine, and I said, what the fuck's wrong with this kid? That's awesome. And she was like, you're disgusting. And I was like, well, I don't know. Am I? Because this show's portraying it like it's a seemingly normal thing.
I talked to somebody whose issue with that scene was that he was, look, and God forbid me, he used to be my neighbor. I've met him. He's the nicest guy, Paul Russ.
Seems like a nice kid.
But he's off the charts nice. But this person was like, 2 attractive young girls in their underwear are going to have sex with this guy. That's what I'm supposed to believe. That was their issue.
Well, I would
then
say...
he falls in love with Jillian Jacobs, like that is something that can be a difficult obstacle. I imagine for women it's even harder to overcome that obstacle on a show because you're always seeing hot girl average.
I will say this.
You never see it the other way.
I have 1 or 2 friends that have lucked out into threesomes here and there, and it's stories like that. They weren't sisters, but it's stories like that where it's like, what is this, a porno movie?
Yeah.
And it's not the good-looking chiseled guys. It's always like the nerdy whatever guys, because I think certain girls find a real attraction and a safety in that. We can feel comfortable with this guy. We know he's not a freak.
Yeah.
He's probably not a womanizer.
Sure.
So that's what made me find that scene believable. But it's also like, oh, this is your show. So you get to write yourself into this scene. But back to the lust aspect of it. I mean, I was like, that's a grand slam this guy just could have hit. And other people were like, that's disgusting.
Yeah. I'll comment more on that after the show in case my girlfriend does decide to listen this week.
Well, I said to my friend, I said, look, I don't have siblings, so maybe I'm just unable to put it in any sort of real perspective. Yeah. To me, it's just these 2 hot girls want to have sex with him.
Right.
And it's really freaky.
Yeah. No, I just meant, the area you were talking about. I have some knowledge and could discuss.
Well, clearly it's not good what you're going to say because you need to say it off the air. Clearly, we're not going to stop recording and you go, Joe, that's disgusting.
No. Oh, no. I already feel like I've said too much.
All right.
We'll move past it. What are your big issues with Lost on a day-to-day basis? You know what? Let me quickly. When I was driving over here, there was an American Apparel ad. Usually those girls are too strung out looking, heroin looking. It's not for me.
It's all part of the appeal.
Yeah. They had kind of a thicker girl sort of pulling on a pair of pants. She was in underwear and a bra or something. And I almost wrecked my car. I came very, very close to wrecking my car. I had to slam the brakes on. I was staring at it. And that sort of thing, especially in LA, especially if you drive down like Sunset or, that whole area, Sunset Strip, you can see things where I'm like, if I had kids, I didn't see things like this till I was 10 years old. I would be terrified to drive my kids down this place where you're seeing basically people fucking on the side of the road. And when that is around you at all times, I think that fucks with guys in particular because you start looking, if you look your whole life only at porn star bodies, stripper bodies, model bodies, you're looking on all these different sites, you're looking at all these different billboards, all these different commercials. When you see an actual female body in person, very rarely is it that. And if you have never seen it, it might not be cool to you because you've only seen these other things. I think that's what's ruining people, and I think it's going to really fuck up some minds that are coming up now.
Well, it is a lot of access. I hate that every episode I go, I'm talking about something similar in my act, but I am. But I have a thing in my act right now about the internet, and I'm just like, I don't want to be able to jerk off to anything I think of instantly.
Yeah.
That's not like a healthy thing. Like porn, the whole premise of the bit is like porn, anal used to be this event in porn, like as it should be, a woman shoving something up her asshole for you on camera. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like run of the mill. You just take it for granted because there's so much of it out there, and it's so competitive because it's all free, illegally free, by the way.
Right.
And it's ruined it. It's like we have no appreciation for the risk these women are taking. And for the position they're put, I mean, it truly is a gigantic sacrifice. And we're just like, yeah, of course. No, that's what you do. Yeah. It's like, no, that's not what you do. These are like Evel Knievel.
Right.
Level fucking stunt show people, and they're getting zero credit for it. We don't even let them be in like
very
real
little money for it.
Very little money. We don't let them be in like real TV shows and shit. Once in a while, somebody creeps through like Sasha Grey or Ron Jeremy.
Creeps right back out because we never saw her after that movie.
Yeah, it's like that. It's kind of bullshit, man. But it is bullshit. We don't treat them very well. But I'll tell you, my lust struggle, if you will, is that I'll see a woman that. It could just be an average woman that I wouldn't look twice at. Not out of any disrespect, but just like she's a very, very regular person that you would see on a very regular basis anywhere in your life or throughout your day. I'll see a woman like that, and the tiniest thing, I'll be at a diner or something, the tiniest thing will light the fuse for me. And I'm talking like her shoulder muscle, just the tiniest fucking thing. Mm-hmm. And then I can't think about anything else for days. Mm-hmm. Like I'll just for days be like, why
you can't think about anything but that particular girl, or like I have to have sex.
It'll go from here's a girl that I could take or leave to 3 days later, why didn't I get that girl's number? Mm-hmm. She's the hottest thing I ever saw. Mm-hmm. I'm a fucking idiot. That was probably my wife. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I get like nuts about it.
But you do go up and talk to girls way more than most.
I'm not shy in my old age, I will say that, which I like about myself.
Yeah.
I try not to be sleazy about it, but I do try to talk to girls that interest me.
Right.
But you don't talk to all of them. Sometimes you just can't. I saw a girl the other night at Good Luck Bar. I was dying to talk to her, but she was with 4 other girls. And I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that walks up to the table of girls. That's when you're Larry from Three's Company.
Yeah, I've never once done that.
Yeah, I was like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that.
I've almost never walked up and cold talked to a girl. There's always been an intro, or if the girl stares at me for 10 minutes, maybe I'll go over. And I can only assure you that doesn't happen often.
If you can get that smile and nod out of them,
Yeah.
if you
Then
make
it's like,
eye
okay.
contact, then it's a lot easier.
Right.
Sometimes I'll send a drink. I've done that many times.
Right.
I'll send a drink on over
Yeah.
with an almost apologetic explanation from the bartender.
Yeah.
You know, because
I mean,
it's
I've often said I could have my hands on a girl's bare breasts and still need a mutual friend to tell me that she likes me before proceeding with, which I regret looking back on my single days, because I can't tell you what a coward I was for really my entire life. You know, like my girlfriend now approached me. Like that's kind of what I needed, because I don't know if it's self-esteem or what, but you just don't. I would never act on my lust, which I feel like might have been a mistake looking back.
I don't think it's a mistake.
Why not? Especially in LA, people you forget, and honestly, it might be growing up with Everybody Loves Raymond, which is not even a show I watched. But like all these different shows about men want sex, women don't want it, and you forget that women definitely want sex, and they're looking for it, and it's easy to assume that they don't and that you're bothering them every time you go up to speak to them, which
Sure.
in some cases you are, but more often than not, they're like, hey, cool, hello. Maybe you're not going to have sex with them, but people are always up to talk.
Well, people want to be social. Girls get horny, just like the boys do.
They do.
Well, I say I don't think it's a mistake to act on or to not act on your lust. I mean, there are definitely wrong. There are wrong ways to act on it, obviously, but I'm saying like if in a healthy, mutual, agreeable engagement, whatever, you know, sometimes that can be really fun. Sometimes the other person just wants to have a quick session with you too, and it's one and done, and you're both happy. Sometimes it can backfire where you think the times it causes me problems is when I think I really like somebody, and then I find out after we have sex it was just lust the whole time. That sucks, because I honestly have no way of knowing that in my brain. I just think like, no, of course I like this girl, she's great.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's really dangerous to not have sex till you get married.
Sure.
Couples that do that, I'm like, my God, what if the second you bust the nut on that honeymoon, you just realize you were in a 3-year lust binge?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I hate this person.
I have always had sort of an issue having sex outside of a relationship, or at least dating, because of the way I was raised, which was wait until you're married.
Right?
So
I'm opening the door. Con, relax.
Boy.
Sorry, I'm just opening the front door. You know, the first time
for the Lust podcast, you're going to open the door so everyone can hear us?
Well, because here's why. The first time we did this with the door open, we said we had to shut it because we thought it was going to be too loud. You couldn't hear anything.
That's true.
And secondly, I'm hot as balls.
It's very warm.
And all this talk about lust isn't helping. I'm sweating. And
No.
I've also just had enough beer at this point that now I want to get drunk again tonight.
Sure.
And I'm
glad I
ashamed
could
of
help you with
myself, and I don't understand why I feel this way. Why do I feel this way?
That's a different podcast, Joe.
I don't think it is. I think it ties into lust.
Well, we talked about this with gluttony. You have a few and you want more. We have holes in ourselves, Joe. Emotional holes. They're not being filled emotionally in your case, and perhaps in my case, the way you want them to be. And you wind up trying to fill it in other ways.
Let's talk
and everybody's
about
doing it.
how I want my holes to be filled.
No, but my dad told me, and I bet he would regret this style of parenting now. As I said on the drinking one, he said, if you ever have a drink, you'll be an alcoholic. With sex, he was like, he told me it is like the feeling when your arm falls asleep, but you start to get the feeling back, and it's that pins and needles feeling across your entire body, which is the worst feeling in the world.
Right.
And it sounded like a living nightmare. He said, that's an orgasm. He's like, sex is great. You never have sex before marriage. And he told me about a friend of his who had gotten his girlfriend pregnant just by making out with her naked. And these crazy, and I bet if I asked him about it now, he'd be like, I never said that. When you're 10 years old and your dad's talking to you about sex, you remember every word verbatim.
Right.
And that's exactly what he fucking said. And it terrified me from sex and made me think that anyone who would be willing to have sex prior to marriage has to be some sort of degenerate. And I felt that way for a very long time. So, even now, even when like I think, oh, that's all stupid, I don't believe that, I don't feel that way anymore, and I know in my heart I don't, if in my single days I would be going to have sex with somebody who I had, in my mind, just met, maybe it was date 3, or maybe it was, the night we met or something, I couldn't come to terms with, why is this girl willing to have sex on the first night?
Right.
Does she do this a lot? This must not be a moral person because of the way I was raised. Those things are creeping in. It's not the way I feel in my heart, but they're in the back of my head like, but Pat, if you're supposed to wait till you're married and this girl wants to have sex on the first date.
I was in that boat too.
It really fucks with your mind and makes sex a bad thing. And the times that I had a casual hookup, sex, whatever, I wound up like clinging to that person. Like, when they would leave the next day and it would be, oh, it's what it was or whatever else. It would make me very sad. And I would often feel like, it was just very unfulfilling to me. I cannot be one of those guys, as like, Pete calls it, a fuck guy, who just like goes bang somebody like that's fun and that was fun and heads out the door. Not saying I caught feelings either necessarily, but it really messes with your head when you're raised that way.
I was in that boat too. I was raised very Catholic.
Same here.
I thought that STDs were punishments.
Sure.
I thought that every action had a negative reaction. So I had a very hard time. Every time I had sex, I think maybe 3 times from 21 till like 23 or something, or 24. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And every time I would have it, I would be racked with guilt and fear afterwards and everything. It took me a long time to get over that.
Yeah.
And I hated it because I knew deep down somewhere it wasn't true. It wasn't real. I knew it was some kind of bullshit psychological baggage. And I was happy when it finally did go away. But here I am now as a guy at 38, not prone to serious relationships, not against them, but just haven't been in many. And it's the other end of it where it's kind of like I made up for lost time, and I date a lot, and I have a lot of fun, and it's always, it's always very great and very respectful. But there is a part of me now that's like, oh shit, did I go the other way too hard? Am I not going to be able to settle down?
Right.
I don't know. But then I think maybe I don't want to settle down. Who the hell knows?
Well, you always can decide to settle down, and of course they say you'll know when you know. Are you saying you have casual sex a lot and that you'll always be chasing that?
I don't have casual sex a lot. I date now, but like not very seriously.
Sure.
I'll hang out with the same girl for a little while.
Right.
And for whatever reasons, it doesn't get more serious, usually.
I would find...
Which sometimes, a lot of times, is their decision, too. Like, right. But it's just like, my point is like, to me, casual sex is like, oh, you're running with 3 different girls every week.
Right.
Or whatever. I try not to do that, but like, I don't know, man. My buddy's married. I have many friends that are married. So this man will remain safely anonymous, but he called me the other day and he's like, I've been where you're at, where you're questioning things, and I've been on the other side of it now. He's like, I'm telling you, it's better where you're at. Oh. He's like, I'm not saying marriage is terrible. I'm just saying...
He's married the wrong person.
Well, he's just said this. He goes, marriage has its ups and downs, as does being single.
Yeah.
But the downs of marriage are a lot harder.
Sure. But aren't the highs much higher if you have kids? And
doesn't sound like it to me.
For him.
Look.
Well, he didn't speak for everyone. There are people who are in families who are over the moon happy with having kids. I have a buddy who I never dreamed would get married, let alone have a kid.
Sick.
And now he's racing for the phone when we hang out to call his daughter before bath time,
It's a sick thing, this kids thing. It's sick.
That's you. You have no interest in it, but there are a lot of people it works for.
They're sick in their heads.
You exist because of someone.
Are you in your second 24-ounce bud?
Yeah.
And Clamato juice?
Yeah.
It's impressive, man.
Is it? It's 2 beers.
It's 2 24-ounce beers, so it's 4 beers.
Well, I just opened them.
I'm impressed. I'm not criticizing you.
But you are.
I'm not. I'm saying...
You're done with we're in the exact same boat, except
no,
I started
I still about half mine.
All right.
I'm not criticizing. I swear to you, I'm not. I like your style.
It happens every week.
I like your style.
Joe's always like, are you drunk over there? Every week.
I like
all over
your
the place.
style. Relax. I like
all
your
right.
style. I don't want to have kids at all. Marriage seems nice.
I
don't
do.
let
By the
kids.
way, I do this so that I can speak freely and not overanalyze every word I say on the fucking podcast. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, every if we do these on a Monday night, you know, Tuesday morning, I'm always like, hey, do you think I shouldn't have said this and that and that?
Yeah. Whereas I don't care.
Let alone a fucking
anymore.
lust podcast.
There are people lusting after this podcast. They want more. They just want to use us for our talk.
Dating a couple people that you mentioned, I can't do that either. The amount of guilt that goes on, you know, I had a pretty long stretch of being single prior to my relationship, and I would be dating two girls that I really liked and just feel like I'm so terrible that I'm doing this, and I couldn't commit to either, and I wasn't comfortable in either. But that's what dating is, especially like in LA. I was acting like, Pat, you're this cad, when the truth is everyone is doing it. And one, you know, at least one of the two girls was
Right.
definitely dating other people as well.
Right.
But I went through this whole thing of like, oh, I can tell she's starting to really like me, and I shouldn't be dating this other, and would be so non-committal to all involved because of this guilt
Right.
that that's how you wind up pissing people off.
Yeah. I found a lot of the time when I overcompensate to explain my situation and
Yeah.
be protective of the other person's feelings or whatever, that's usually when they get pissed.
Yeah.
That's usually like a, fuck you. What am I, a fucking child? Don't do this.
Right.
Who are you to think I'm this concerned?
Right.
So I just try to run with it. I try to be honest as I can be and
But don't you think
transparent.
girls are completely rightly sick of the fucking guy, especially like, let's look at LA, the comedy scene. How often do you think these girls that go out with these guys here like, look, I'm not looking for anything serious? You almost can't say that with a straight face anymore. It has to just seem over the top
I
cliche.
don't think you need to say that. I think that's a crazy thing to say.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
I think being honest is saying, this is what I try to do. I try to hang out with somebody I find interesting,
Yeah.
and I let it go where it goes.
Right.
9 times out of 10, if it's not going anywhere serious or whatever, it's a very mutual thing. It's not me going, sorry, I'm not into this, and then the girl's like, what the hell?
Right.
There's just a vibe about it. There's a vibe in the air. It's connecting with the right person.
But now I'm not trying to be your therapist here. I've known you 2-something years.
Yeah,
I've not known you to be in a serious relationship.
I'm not. I usually am not.
That's not something that even interests you.
No, it does. I just haven't met the right person yet.
Right.
I look at it as I look at it like an alcoholic, you know? It's one day at a time. Things happen as they happen. Sometimes you have slips, sometimes you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is when it's right, it'll be right.
Sure.
And it'll last. And even when it is right and it does last, there might even be some slips during that period between the two of you on one side or the other. But when it's right, it'll be right. So I know when it'll be right. I got good advice from my friend or another friend of mine who's very happily married. Not the one that said the other thing. Not to say he's not happily married, but my point is this guy
Sounds like it's not. But
feels quite the opposite. But he said, you know, the way I ended up with my wife was I just dated and didn't have any expectations and didn't limit myself in any way. And eventually there was one person that I wanted to spend more time with.
Right.
And that led to me only seeing that one person. And she clearly felt the same way. And then they got married and they're really happy. So I try to do it like that.
Right.
I try to just let it naturally, whatever. And I'm telling you, sometimes, a lot of the time, 10 times out of 10, but 9 times out of 10, when it's going to end, it's very mutual. This system works, at least for me. You know, nobody's getting hurt or upset. It's just like, yeah, we tried and it didn't, whatever. Who cares?
See, I got to say, at the extreme risk of coming off arrogant, which I am definitely not, I found myself when I was single having a lot of situations where the girl was interested and I was interested, and finding myself just kind of saying, like, if something would fizzle out or whatever, hey, I'm sorry, you know, I don't think I'm into this, or I don't think I want to continue with this or whatever, and always getting a very hurt, confused reaction. And I think I would have to ask them, which I have in some cases, it is because I am nice and we would hang out and have a lot, like a really, really good time and laugh a lot and talk a lot.
Sure.
But still, I would be like, no, but this isn't for me romantically. I'm not going to marry this person. And I would tell them, and across the board, the reaction would be a pretty real hurt. And it made me feel scared to even get into these things because I thought, well, maybe these guys who are assholes are right, because then when they go, you know what, I'm done with you, the girl's like, yeah, that checks out. I would be really nice and fun and laughing and having a great time. But then if I felt like I wanted to get out, I'd go, hey, I feel like I want to get out. And the girls were always really hurt by it.
I think there are a lot of factors that play into that. I think one thing is when you were last single, you were in your early 30s. When I was in my early 30s, I found myself more in that situation too. I think
Right.
it's just a result of A, gravitating towards the wrong people,
Sure.
B, not being able to express yourself in a healthy way, and C, putting out wrong energies.
Yeah.
And I think that when you combine those three things, you successfully combine the three things, you don't really end up in that position. And when you
Yeah.
don't, it can be very complicated. But when I was that age, I had the same problems. This is a very recent thing where I realized just put it out there, who
Right.
you are, in any other part of your life. For instance, when you go to the bank, you don't go out of your way to say, I'm trustworthy
Sure.
to the person giving you money or giving you a loan or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. Or when you see a cop, you don't go, I swear to God, I don't commit crime. You let your energy speak for you.
Right.
And it applies the same to dating.
I think in terms of the wrong energy going out, I would be like, during this period of dating, at the end of the night, be hugging each other on a street corner and making out and looking at each other's eyes and talking and stuff. And then if the girl would stay over or whatever, snuggling up to her and etc. And then, doing that and then dropping on somebody that you're not interested in continuing dating. I understand why that's confusing, but my issue would always be well, then am I supposed to be a standoffish dick during the fun dating part so that you're not surprised when I don't want to go out anymore?
You're not supposed to be anything.
I would be loving and kind and funny and joking around and let me take you out and let's do this. And unfortunately, that creates an environment of I'm safe in this relationship. That when you pull the rug out,
with
it's
certain
bad. With certain people. Exactly right. But I felt like I, as an already guilty person, I would be torn apart by hurting these girls' feelings. Not to me that they're like, oh my God, my life's ruined because Pat Walsh doesn't want to fucking date me. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that they were like, oh, I thought we were heading in a good direction or whatever. That would happen more often than not. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to avoid that unless it's just being a dick from day one. And I don't want to be that person.
But
that's why I've always been better in a relationship, because then you're
You don't
good.
have to be a dick. You don't have to be overly charming. You just have to be yourself. And
Right.
you also have to realize you're not responsible for somebody else's feelings. You can be respectful of somebody else's feelings.
Yes.
But it's not your fault if they go, well, I assumed it was this, this, and this because you said these things. It's like, that's not your
Right.
fault. You're not going out of your way to be like, I love you, and then crossing your fingers behind your back. You're
Yeah.
being yourself.
With some distance, I was like, yeah, you weren't saying I love you, I want to spend my
No.
life with you, whatever else. I think just girls are used to assholes, and I think that just simply being nice and showing up can make people think like this is a more serious thing than it is. And I always had a lot of conflict with that. And I know it goes the other way too. I'm just talking from my experience.
From a male perspective.
From a male
Which
perspective.
you said earlier you believe is the right perspective.
No, I would never say that. I feel like the male perspective is very often the wrong perspective.
See, but in my opinion, you got to be careful. That's very generous of you towards the female side of things, but you have to be careful with that because that starts to become sexist in and of itself. To start to go, well, the men are usually wrong and the women need to be protected and that's another slippery
I'm just
slope.
already thinking ahead to any number of people having a problem with anything being said.
Just talk,
which is what it is.
And this
I am
is why
just talking.
And this is why you had a problem when you were dating.
Exactly.
Because you were thinking ahead too much.
Yes, that is very correct.
You hang around with healthy people, and none of us are healthy. Let's be honest.
No.
We're all fucked. But you hang around with the healthier people you can find, and most of the time, they're just regular people trying to figure it all out, too.
Yeah.
And they don't have unrealistic expectations and things. You know a psycho when you meet one.
I'm not
And
saying
you know
these people
it by
are
the
psychos at all. I'm saying
No, I
that-
know. I'm saying all you got to do is stay away from the psychos.
Sure. Well, yeah, obviously.
And you know a psycho by the second drink, the first time you meet him. You're like,
I'm
this
leaving
guy's
out
crazy.
a lot of dates where I was like, holy shit, I got to get out of this. This person's a nightmare. This person's blackout drunk. This person just fell on the floor in a public bar, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about what would break my heart would be like a girl, looking me in the eyes and smiling, and I could tell, well, unless I'm projecting, that she's feeling safe and happy and I like what's going on here, and me thinking in the back of my mind, boy, I know I'm not going to marry this person.
Well, that's
and I would
you.
think that on date 3, and that's all overthinking.
Sure.
And I ruined what could have been really fun, casual times. But I did not have fun, casual times dating.
Because you're in your head.
Out.
You're in your head too much.
Absolutely.
Get out of your head.
Well, I don't have to anymore. I'm in a loving relationship.
You are. But when you ruin that, and that ends, and you're out there dating again, I want you to not be in your head.
Right. When I'm divorced and wearing pleated khakis out on the town at age 50.
T-shirt tucked in.
Oh, yeah. Beeper, probably.
Beeper?
A beeper.
A beeper.
Or on my belt, or like a cell phone in my belt.
Cell phone on the holster, not a beeper, though.
Yeah.
Cell phone in the holster. What would you be talking about at that point? The new Hyundai that you just bought?
Sure.
What else would interest you at that point?
Probably that James Spader show on NBC, whatever that is.
Blacklist.
The Blacklist, yeah.
Blacklist, you start referring to people you think are funny as a riot.
Yeah, oh, he's a scream, man.
Yeah. Well, that's sad. That made me real depressed, just that whole visual.
Sure. But do you find, which I think is, if we're looking at the root of the sin itself, do you find that lust ever takes you off your path of being a good person, your path of following your career, any number of things? Is lust, because there are people who, they wake up and it's like, how do I have sex? I have a couple friends like this who are like, I got to get funked today. And you're like, so you just never do anything other than this?
No, I don't. I'm not like that.
Have you had pockets of that?
Yeah, I think there was probably a time where I would sort of feel like that, and that would lead to me going out and having... I'll tell you what, that led to me more frequently than not drinking more than I needed to on a night.
Sure.
Because you're chasing the cat, and then
see, what I'm proud to say is I've never woken up in the morning and been like, ugh, look at this. What did I do here? Never. I've always been like, I'm glad I had that sexual encounter, which I know almost no one can say.
No, I've had many of those.
Yeah.
But not at the girl. I'm not going to lie and act like a saint and say I've never woken up next to somebody and gone like, oof.
Right.
You know, the goggles were on.
Thankfully.
But everybody, women and men, have done that.
Absolutely.
But I'd say more frequently, the bad feeling was not not directed at the person. It was more directed at me. Like, why did I do this? This was just an empty thing to do. Right. But again, then like a lot of the time, the girl felt the same way as in it felt bad, but felt like, hey, it's all good. Like we hung out, and then I was like, I'm being too hard on myself. Every time I've confessed that to a friend and said, I feel bad, and I tell the story, every time the person on the other end has always said, stop it. Yeah. Just have fun. Just enjoy yourself. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, I truly do believe in that cliche of when you're an old man, like looking back and being like, I could have had more sex, because it will get to the point where, and hopefully we're all married and in love at this point, so it's irrelevant. But yeah, I mean, the idea of you being alone at a certain age and completely unable to have sex in any way, that's a likely reality.
Do it while you can.
So
there's, I moved out here about 10 years ago, Went to a Halloween party. I hooked up with this girl in a Catwoman outfit. A very, very attractive,
I like that.
very attractive girl.
Daddy likey.
And I had actually driven all the way to my home and got the text, "Why the hell didn't you try anything with me?" And then drove an hour back to meet up with her. But we hooked up. The next day, I wake up, I'm sitting in my car, and I was like, I can't tell you how many times throughout that week I talked myself out of texting her because I felt like I've had sex. This was early on.
Right.
I've had sex with this person. I have to let her know I'm thinking about her. Let her know that I care about her.
Right.
Because of the way I was raised. And I would have horrified her had I done that. But there's some element of that stupid kid in me to this day where that's why a casual sexting doesn't work for me. I find myself being like, is she okay? Is she, where as far as the actual act of sex, maybe that's good. As far as after it, especially in these casual things that are happening all the time and were always happening around me, I was like, but don't her feelings get hurt? Isn't she upset? It's like, no. It's a foreign concept to me because I was raised Catholic, which sucks.
No, the sooner you realize we're all a bunch of pig people, the better off you're going to be.
Sacks of beef.
We're all pig shits.
Yeah.
Just disgusting swine pig shit.
Sure.
All right?
Absolutely.
So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right? Enjoy yourself.
I don't anymore. I actually am tapping into what a nightmare it was for me being single. I did not. Of course, there's high points, but I never had the crazy great times because I was always racked with, I have to explain myself to this person who definitely doesn't need to hear my explanation.
Yeah, you've had
nothing.
many long-term relationships. How many was it? 3, 4 at this point?
I have had, I guess, 4 3-year-ish relationships. 4 2 to 3 year relationships.
Jesus Christ.
Which takes you out of the game for a while, but I am more comfortable in that capacity. I also can only really be comfortable sexually in a long-term relationship or in a relationship.
Sure.
I can do it and get the job done, but as far as like, okay, now I feel safe and secure, which I think everybody feels to some degree, but maybe not. I've done all my best work sexually in a long-term relationship.
Mm-hmm. And by best work, you mean what?
Define
it. Break it down.
I know what I'm doing more. I'm not. That's the other thing.
You're not fumbling with the condom wrapper.
The condom itself. When I pick up that condom, that to me, I'm seeing Jesus's face in that condom. Like, boy, if you were really following my teachings, you wouldn't need this, would you? Like literally.
Yeah.
As a 30-year-old man, every time I got that condom out, I would hear Jesus being like, this is unclean. If you need to cover up, obviously you don't feel safe in this. And I would get tested for STDs every 3 months. Many a doctor has told me, I'm not testing you for that.
Right.
You don't have symptoms. I will not test you for that.
Right.
And me saying, please test me for that because I need to hear no. If I didn't have sex in a 3-month period, I would still get tested at the end of that 3 months because I would say, well, it could be lying dormant in me because you get on those little WebMD sites and it's like herpes can lie dormant in you for years.
Right.
I would be so deep in those sites and so racked with fear, guilt, anxiety with all these sexual encounters. Drinking can help that to some degree. If I had smoked pot at the time, I guarantee that would have helped a lot. But, for something that so many people do constantly, I always treated it like, oh my God, it's this huge thing, which it wasn't.
It's not. It's not. It's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic stuff.
Bumping uglies.
We live in a really, never mind. Kill me. I was just going to say we live in a real contradictory society, but thank God I didn't go down that road.
That's fine. You can say that.
I don't want to go down that road. I'm all lusted up, to be honest with you. I think I got to go out and bang something tonight.
Bang something.
I'm kidding. It was a joke. It was a callback to your thing about the guy waking up and saying, I got to get laid today.
Right.
And by something, I don't mean woman. I mean possibly male or inanimate.
Possibly animal.
Who the hell
Possibly
knows? What are you going to do tonight?
I'm going to a screening of the new Bob Odenkirk movie, which my dear friend Brian is receiving his first producer credit on, and I'm very proud of him, and I can't wait to see it.
Fancy. Have fun.
I will.
I got a show.
All right, I'm a little concerned that we haven't talked long enough. What time is it?
We're at about 45.
All right.
What are you going to do, you know?
I just thought
I'm
we were having
lusted out over here.
No, all right.
We covered the bases, I think, right? We talked about porn. We talked about random sex. We talked about horniness.
Since people turn to us for movies, and we didn't discuss movies at all this podcast, should we? I saw Zoolander 2.
Well,
it was
we
worse
talked
than you
about
could ever imagine.
Porno movies.
Yeah, that's true.
And if we're going to talk about like a horror movie, would be more appropriate than Zoolander 2.
Well, we always talked about whatever movies we saw that week.
Right.
Come on, Joe. Don't throw me under the fucking bus.
But
here.
weren't we just talking about something that had some good surprise nudity in it, or was that on the last episode?
Flight. That was on the last episode.
Well, we can bring it up again in the Lust podcast. There's some good unexpected.
That's the woman from My Name is Earl.
She's righteous.
Yeah.
She's righteous.
She dated a former agent of mine.
Really?
Well, they were married, yeah.
There's
Beautiful
a
woman.
lot of hot women out here in this crazy town we live in.
That's the thing. So you have this. I tend to kind of keep it on lock, but I have this at times as well. Crazy per capita attractiveness here. Which
Yeah.
I go home to Missouri, I'm Tom Selleck in his prime. Here it's very different, and I've had numerous friends like this where it kind of scares you. You've had periods of this, I've had periods of this, where you see a girl walk into the restaurant you're eating at, and it's just like, God damn it.
Yeah, it's
God
upsetting.
damn it. Like, it's upsetting. And I don't know what that is, really, unless it's just an anger that you can't be with that person.
It's just, it throws your whole day sideways.
Yeah.
You don't need to see it.
But
It's like seeing a violent death or something. It's like, I'm going to think about this all day now. It's
now,
gonna
do you ever
distract me.
approach those girls?
No.
Is that
I don't
insecurity?
know. I sometimes I do.
Is that like, why would you talk to me? Or
For me, it's all about right place, right time. I don't really approach girls in diners, I guess is what I'm
Right.
getting at.
Well, you always hear like Megan Fox and people be like, well, no guy's ever approached me. Do you believe that?
I do believe that. I think a girl like that looks so much off the page of Maxim.
Yeah. I feel like
you know.
how guys approach it is like, damn, girl, come sit on my dick, whatever. Like, you're fucking incredible. And that's not going to bring them to you. But I feel like they must get hit on aggressively like that a lot. Like,
The other night when my dog was lost, my friend Michelle, who's quite an attractive woman, but devotedly married, was helping me look for the dog.
yeah.
And we were in a parking lot, and I said, we pulled into a parking lot to see if he was in there, and I said, can you ask this guy over here if he saw the dog? And she rolled down her window. She goes, excuse me, sir, have you seen a little white dog? And the guy goes, I can't hear you. You got to come over here and talk to me. And I was like, okay, then. Glad to see that even in a time of crisis, there's a man in the CVS parking lot
Sure.
trying to get laid. He was in
Sure.
the CVS parking lot, standing outside of his car, music cranked.
Yeah.
This is where he posted up for the night.
I have truly never once in my life, and I am sad about this as I say it, been like, you are so beautiful. Or like, come at a girl with some sort of sexual game or attitude. I can't do it. The only time I've ever done it is my old go-to line that worked a lot was I'd be talking to a girl, a woman, a lady, and she would go, blah, 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 back and forth, shooting the shit, and then she would go, anyway, my boyfriend did it. The old move. We've all been on the receiving end of that.
It's a tough one.
My boyfriend, and I would go, whoa, boyfriend, what was all this?
You would say that.
I've said it a bunch to girls, and they always like laugh really hard at it because it's you saying, I'm fine with you having a boyfriend. They're clearly dropping it in so you don't keep
Right.
hitting on them.
Sure.
It's a nice way to acknowledge that instead of just, I've also seen in bars guys be like, you let me talk to you for 5 fucking minutes when you got a boyfriend? I've seen that a couple times.
I did have a
What are people supposed to do?
I did have a situation the other night that was kind of curious where I met a girl and she knew my comp. She'd been to a show that I performed on. And
Yeah.
she knew me from that, and we were talking for a while, and it was very great conversation. And I said, hey, do you want to go? We were in a bar or whatever. I said, hey, do you want to go sit down? I'd like to sit. And she's like, I want to find a cigarette. I was like, me too, actually. Let's share one. So we found a cigarette. We shared it. We're talking.
Right.
We're having this great talk. The whole meeting met the whole meeting started with her telling me she brought a woman to a show I performed on.
Yeah.
As a date. Sitting, we're talking. I'm gearing up to, like, we should go out sometime. And I say, you're new in town. Where do you live? And she goes, I live in Glendale. And I said, or Atwater. I go, oh, that's great. You found a place already. She goes, well, I live with my boyfriend. And I was kind of like, I played it cool. I was like, oh, cool. That's great. Who's your boyfriend? And she was like, he's right over there. Do you see they got the beard? And then she goes, he's on The Walking Dead. And I was like, this girl just, she couldn't have swung from cool to uncool any harder.
Yeah, but
than
what
that whole
are you
exchange.
Gonna do?
Dropping his credits?
That's weird. Yeah.
Come on, man.
No, I was telling you, I talked to a girl that I think is fantastic at a wedding the other night for like 10 minutes. And we're talking and having a really nice time. But, like, in my mind, I'm not flirting. I'm just kind of being funny and nice and saying funny things and trying to, keep the conversation moving. And then it hit a point where it was like, hey, so you're staying here. Like, what room are you in? Are you here alone? Whatever else. And I was like, oh, no, I'm staying in a room with my girlfriend. This girl walked off a little angry, or maybe mock angry. But it was pretty clear when she walked away that she had thought it was going one way and it wasn't. And I was like, so what am I supposed to do? Can you not talk to a woman or a man if you're in a relationship? It gets very dodgy. You don't want to be like, hi, nice to meet you. I have a girlfriend. That's crazy to say.
Yeah, and it's also hard not to...
It's complicated.
Seem like you're flirting or not. Who the hell knows? I don't know. We'll figure it out someday, Patty.
All right.
This has been You Will See You in Hell, presentation of the Fangoria Podcast Network, produced by Thomas DeFeo, executive produced by Ken Hanley of Fangoria Entertainment. For press opportunities, advertising, inquiries, and information about We'll See You in Hell, contact Ken at Fangoria.com. That's the email address. Follow me, Joe DeRosa Comedy, on Twitter. Follow Pat at Pat Walsh on Twitter, and I will be touring starting March 17th. This is probably after that at this point, but North Carolina, actually March 18th, 19th, North Carolina, Wilmington, at the Dead Crow Radio Room in Greenville, South Carolina. I think that one's like the 22nd. Hattiesburg, Mississippi, at the Thirsty Hippo. That Friday, Lafayette. That Saturday, New Orleans. And then the following Tuesday through Saturday at Acme Comedy Club Company in Minneapolis. Pat, do you have plugs or what?
No, this is all my original hair, but
oh boy.
I will be jumping into an active volcano off the coast of Waikiki on April 9th.
And this is because you're a virgin, right?
No, there may be virgins there jumping in as well. I'm just kind of doing it. It's a lifelong dream of mine. It's Mount Kamanawanalia.
Oh, God.
Keep it on that lust theme. I think that's a Wayne's World joke, actually. Folks, I'm not doing anything. But if you want to maybe say hello and grab a burger, give me a call. I'd love to meet up.